Välkommen till programserien Öppna dörren till Israel. Du känner säkert igen platsen som jag står på just nu, men Israel har så mycket mer att upptäcka, även om den här är en mycket speciell plats. Så i de här programmen kommer du att få möta personer här i Israel, men också i Sverige, som förhoppningsvis ger dig svar på några frågor som ofta dyker upp när Israel kommer på tal. Sedan 1980 så finns den internationella kristna ambassaden på plats här i Jerusalem med cirka 40-50 personer som i praktisk handling vill förvalta det uppdraget som du och jag har från Jesaja kapitel 40, där det står: trösta, trösta mitt folk och tala ljuvligt till Jerusalem. År 2010 så kom det ett telefonsamtal till den kristna ambassaden i Jerusalem. Och det var en judisk man som ringde och undrade om vi kunde vara med i ett arbete. Bakgrunden var att Simon, som han hette, hade varit med om en olycka och hade blivit totalt förlamad. Det fanns inget hopp för honom för att han skulle bli återställd. Så han ligger på sjukhuset och så ber han till Gud att om jag blir frisk så lovar jag att jag ska hjälpa fattiga. Miraklet händer efter en tid. Han tränade självklart också själv, men han blir återställd och kommer tillbaka till sin stad Haifa. Och så kom han ihåg det här löftet som han hade gett och började då att dela ut mat en gång i veckan. Och vid ett tillfälle så ser han i den här kön att det är några män som står och skojar och skrattar lite. Så han frågar: vad är det som sker? Vad är det ni skrattar över? Och då säger en man att vi säger det att vi behöver ju inget könummer, för vi har ju våra nummer på armarna. Och då upptäckte Shima att det var många utav de här som han hade börjat att ge mat som då har en gemensam bakgrund, nämligen att de är överlevare från förintelsen. Och detta är ju ett av de arbetena som vi från svenska avdelningen verkligen är med och stöder. Att ge de här överlevarna ett gott år, de här sista åren de har kvar i sina liv. Så alla här som bor här har varit med om Auschwitz eller flera utav de här gettorna. Så jag vill samtidigt passa på att uppmuntra dig och inspirera dig till att stå med i det här. Att ge de här överlevande några goda år i sina sista år i sitt liv. Så var med oss, gå in på vår hemsida icej.se och bli gärna medlem eller se vad du kan bidra med. Dear Renate, thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
You know, I have been doing a program that is called Open the Doors to Israel. And this is a way to open a door to the Jewish people and for Israel, for the audience. And I know you have been staying here at the Haifa home for some years now. And of course, all of you have been telling your different stories about your life you know, from the Second World War. So, and what I can tell, you have also told your story in special books here. Is it both of them?
Yeah. That's
Fantastic.
the first one I wrote because I always have been writing poetry, so that's nothing.
Okay.
But my book was due to friends of mine. They said, Renate, why don't you write your story down? I said, well, when you want to help me, I will. Now, I had this book written. It was 2 years that it took. And then I pulled myself through it, you know. And then somebody read it and called me and says, I'd like to talk to you because I'm a director from a theater. And I read your book, and I want to ask you if we can write a story so we can perform it. And I said, well, it's my story, so about I write it.
Oh.
You know, so I did write the play.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a very nice play. Yeah, it took almost 2 hours.
Okay.
And so it was performed in the oldest theater in Rochester, where I used to live, you know. Yeah.
Yes. That's
And,
fantastic.
My father was working there for, I think it was Krupp. I always knew it was Krupp. And they went later on into war ammunitions and stuff. You know,
Yes,
they
yes.
changed their production. And of course, the Jews had to be fired. They were all out of jobs, 1939. And so my mother was a dressmaker, and for I don't know how many years she was then with my dad in Essen, but then they moved both to Cologne, and my mother started a new business. She had quite a few customers already beforehand, and my aunt was working for the Scheckamt. It's like a post office and a bank together, you know. And so most of her people working with her were my mother's customers. You know, at that time, you had to have a dressmaker to make your clothes.
Yes.
You couldn't buy them yet.
Yes.
And it was so odd when my mother says, well, very soon there will be stores and you can just go in there and you tell your size, and when you like something, you can buy it. And it was so unbelievable that you could get finished clothes, you know. But so it was. My mother started her business, and my father, now being out of a job, and he was a scientist, he was really working for, his mind was constantly on his work, you know. He was more married with his work than my mother. And she told me a few stories about him. When he was on one deal he wanted to finish, he wouldn't talk to me for 6 weeks. He had to finish his work. What he did was working for iron lungs. He didn't make them, he made them better.
Okay.
Gas masks, the same thing. He had patents on it too.
Okay.
And I don't know what all kind of patents he had, but quite a few. And of course, they stayed with the company. So he had nothing when he came out of there, you know. And
he had to finish because he was a Jew.
That he was ousted of the business, of the company. Yeah. And all the Jews then, 39 was the time when they lost their job. There was a small time in between when Hitler needed more ammunition. Then they called them back for a while, you know. But my mother rented a garage for him so he could, you know, puddle with this whatever he was doing, yeah. The Gestapo came into the house. Now I had a kinder Mädchen, a lady. She was over 50, and she took care of me. And of course, she usually cooked dinner. That I always had something to eat when she was gone. So the Gestapo came into the house, and when that happened, she quickly would take me and put me in a small little room where there was a wash basin, and I had to say nothing. just be quiet. Yeah. So I was in there standing on one leg one time. I remember that I wouldn't make noise to put the other leg down. I'm 6 years old this time.
Okay.
And then suddenly we were moving. No, I have to go back. Then Mother took me after the worst bombing. And I have a picture in here, where there was the post office, which came down. There was nothing left the next day. It was totally bombed. It was gone. And it was quite a big building. And it was so terrible. We came right here. That's a post office.
Yes.
And we lived right across from the post office.
Yes.
So when that was bombed, we were there.
Is that you? Or?
That's my mother
with
me, yeah. Yeah, that was the last picture.
Yeah, and
of my
so you
parents.
had that from before.
Yeah. So you can look at it when you want. So that was the worst bombing, where we were right in it, you know. And so we had to, we still could go out, and our building was still all right. After that, I want to try to get it short. After that, the bombings didn't stop. And my mother says, Liebchen, come, let's go and see what is left if we still have a job. So we went, and that building we saw already when we came down the street. The whole building was gone. There was just a back wall and something on the roof, but there was 3-story, was gone completely. And she says, well, now we don't have a job anymore. And I said, well, then I have you more, you know. Yeah, but then we had to move. And we had to move into a Jewish villa. And there I was going to school. The first school was bombed. The second school was a little further. And when that was bombed, I was glad I didn't have to go anymore. But it was the last day for me that a teacher came to me and she says, Renate, tell your mother not to come to school anymore. So I told my mother, and she knew right away what that meant. Next day, we were on a trip to the east. There was a lady with 2 children, and her last name was Kaufmann, just like ours. And so I stayed there for a while, but the Russians came close. So my mother thought, I better get her out of there to get her to another customer of hers. But that customer didn't know a thing that I was on the way to come to. And that was a terrible trip. Took us hours and hours. The train before us was bombed, so we couldn't go on. And we were a day and a night on that cold and rainy train station. So my mother looked for a place that I could sleep, and she found in a small little building, little house, a table. And she asked the people, is it okay I put my daughter here so she can sleep? There I slept on the table. And the next day we could continue with the trip. My mother didn't know. She has never been there. So it wasn't easy for her. She just was in a little village. But we finally made it there. And we came there, I think it was evening. We came through the back door. And as soon as I came into that kitchen, I see in my mind that the floor opened on the right side. I didn't say anything because when a child 6 years old, no one believes, you know, and I didn't want to say anything. So for years I didn't, until finally I found out what happened. Well, anyhow, those 2 years, they were no fun. That's why I'm crippled. And my mother came 45, as soon as the war was over. And my father, in the meantime, was killed.
Because you went away, you fled only with your mother.
My mother left me there. My mother left me there. And I said, Mama, why can't you stay here? They also offered for her to stay.
Yes.
And they said, well, the farmers, they can use you, you know, you can work, and all the farmers. No, she says, I have to go back to my husband.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my father was still he was still alive.
Yes,
They still were. And as soon she came back, maybe a week or so, they were all incarcerated into a big gathering camp. And that's the picture. My father drew that. There were barracks. And in each,
when she went back to her husband.
Yes, yes. And both of them were then in that camp. I don't know how long. But I can only gather of the 2 letters he wrote to me. And there's a date on there. So from the time they went in there, I have no idea. But I know when.
Yes, when they did it.
Yeah,
yes.
when the last day was. So they were in there, and my father wrote those 2 letters. That's the focal point of the book, are those 2 letters, because I speak to the youth.
Really?
Yeah, he wrote beautiful, beautiful. And so I had a dream now. Let me go on. So at the end, my mother came to me, and she found work with the farmers. And that one day she was home, and the children with whom I played before, they were throwing stones at me. They called me a dirty Jew. I didn't know I was Jewish. And I cried, and I went home, and my mother said, why are you crying? I said, the children, they threw stones at me. They call me a dirty Jew. I'm not a Jew. And she says, yes, you are. I cannot understand it later on, how a mother can say a terrible thing like that to her child, which had already I went through so much already. And then to blame me to be a Jew, a dirty Jew. I was scared of the Jews. So I went through lots of difficulty, physical difficulty. I had to sleep 1 year in cast. They thought they got me straight again. Didn't work. Matter of fact, it helped. It hurt my kidneys because it was very cold going through a winter in a cast. So we put a heating pad in there, and but I had to sleep like this. And then my body was completely straightened out. I wasn't as crooked then as I'm now. But that was from a beating I got from this lady who took me in, with a big stick like this. It was just one hit, but it did all of the damage. Even so, she spanked me with lots of cooking spoons, but they didn't do any harm to me.
It was a lady, not a man.
There was a woman, yeah. With the 2 children, yeah. And of course, for lots of money. And living there, it became a house of ill repute. There were 9 ladies in there, and then first the Germans, then the English, then the French, and then the Americans. They all went through that house. Yeah. And I thought, it's funny, they're always tired. Men that came, they're always tired. They're all sleeping in their beds. Well, anyhow, that didn't stay long in my head. Now we are in Cologne. And my cousin, she was 17, went all through Germany to find us. And she brought us home. I have to carry a suitcase, and that probably helped or damaged my spine. Okay, I wasn't probably not completely healed. My daughter, her children, they were very upset with me that I left. And I said, Karina, you knew from the time you were little that we end up in Israel. I always wanted to go to Israel. I wanted to live on the ground which belongs to the Jewish people. I want to live on holy ground. I don't call the people here holy. They are holy as Swiss cheese, you know. But
the ground.
the people I have met, they're wonderful, but not all of them, you know. So I'm not complaining. I'm very happy to be here.
But it's interesting that you, when you are 12 years old and got to know that you were a Jew and you hated that.
Well,
and but then you in the life you feel that connection to go to
well, the
the
thing
country.
happened, when I was 12, several things happened at that time. My mother brought a lady home. She was just a few years older than I, also Holocaust survivor. And she was taken care by a cloister with the nuns. And they didn't treat them good either. They had the potato peels, but, you know, that was their food. Yeah. But she came out of it very ill. Yeah. She had something with her lungs. I forgot the name of it now. She was always sick. Lots of hospital visits I went to her. But she told me there was a celebration of the Holocaust, a gathering of the Jews from Cologne. And she says, let's go there. We went there and I could not feel, I felt so strange. And she says, Renate, don't be afraid or ashamed of being Jewish. I'm just as Jewish as you are. We're Jews. And then she told me about, you know, Jesus was a Jew. And that was also odd for me, that he was a Jew. I couldn't get it right in my head. But I prayed all the time. And I asked the Lord when I went to America, please show me a church which teaches your truth. I didn't find. I went from church to church. From I was in Seventh-day Advent. They finally were the ones, they were kosher, kept the Shabbos, you know, so that was closer to me and very good teaching. But Israel, there was no Israel, and they were Israel. And I thought, that doesn't fit. Now, anyhow, I met the Messianics. There was a gathering from how can I say that right now? It was a radio program, a Christian radio program. And I thought, well, maybe they know somebody in the town of Jews for Jesus or something like that. And a guy introduces himself to me, and I said, Renate Kaufmann. He says, Benedict, where are you Jewish? I said, why you think so? Your name. Yeah, I said, I'm Jewish. And why do you come here? I said, I believe in Christ. Well, do you know about the Messianics? No, I said, not. He says, there is a place where the Jews can worship Yeshua. And he gave me the phone number. So I called, and they said, yeah, you want to come over? You come and have dinner with us. So I go out in the yard and got myself a nice bunch of flowers and go over there. And I suddenly was home.
Your father and mother went into camps?
Yeah. They both went. They asked my mother to divorce my father, and she says, I never will divorce him.
Divorce him for why?
Well, he was Jewish, and they didn't know she was Jewish. You know, they thought she was just a Gentile, yeah. Yeah, but her mother was Jewish, and that was also not known. And the cousin's son, who was a teacher, he found out later on that the mother, his grandmother, was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just said, you know, Mom, we're all Jews. And they were hated Jews. They didn't want my mother to marry my father. And he was such a fine man, you know.
And they all were Jews.
They all, yeah. And my cousin says, I don't understand it, Renate, that you went to America and went away, and then now you're in a synagogue. I don't understand that. You're not even Jewish. I say, what? I'm more than not. I'm from my father, I'm Jewish, and from my mother. And I say, when you don't like your Jewish blood, go and have it changed. Have yourself a blood wash. Yeah. It's not that I'm proud, especially. I am thankful. I'm more thankful that, you know, out of that tragedy, this beautiful thing came out of it, that I have the blood of Jesus. You know, I call him Yeshua. So that it is almost like a Wiedergutmachung to me, to my life. You know what Wiedergutmachung means? To make it good, yeah. My camp was a house in a village quite quaint, a place to hide, but not by a saint, a place where many fled from the terrors grown, but under this roof was a war of its own. Prostitution, abortion, physical abuse. Here lived a lady with a very short fuse. She beat her children. Now I was here too. She beat me unmercifully for things I didn't even do. My back was injured, my mind deranged. So many things this bitter war changed. My parents away, didn't know if still alive. But mother came back. Father did not survive. They beat him with rifle butts and split his skull. He died a martyr's death, so vicious and cruel. We did go on, but spirit and soul, both broken and marred from life's unrighteous school.
Tack för att du har varit med och sett på det här programmet. Vill du veta mer om den internationella kristna ambassaden Jerusalem så är du hjärtligt välkommen att gå in på vår hemsida icej.se och se på vilket sätt du kan vara med att stå upp för Israel idag.